All right, Jim Bowden in The Athletic, he put together the contract predictions, his predictions for free agents around baseball, some of the top free agents in baseball. And there are some Padres on this list. And so I want to go through these and let me know in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Would you bring the Padres free agents, these Padres free agents, would you bring them back for this money? So let's start with Dylan Cease. 6 years, $187 million was the prediction from Jim Bowden. For me, that is an obvious no. I don't want him pitching in big games, and he actually did his job at Wrigley, so I will give him credit there. But still, I don't trust him to pitch in the biggest games, like especially if they're going to go up against the Dodgers, let's say. I don't trust him pitching in those games. Why would I give that guy over $30 million a year? For 6 years? No, thank you. I don't even think I need to elaborate very much on this one. Like, sure, he gives you innings, he'll give you starts, but and the potential that's worth over $30 million a year for 6 years. I'm good. I'd rather go short term on maybe some other guys that I'm like, I can rely on that guy more in bigger games, even if it's not for 6 years. Michael King, 3 years, 75 mil. I would do that. I know that there's the health question. What happened this past season? He doesn't have the starting track record that Dylan Cease does have, but I see that upside talent there in Michael King, and it's not over $30 million a year, and it's not for 6 years. And Michael King, I think, is the better starting pitcher. If both guys are healthy and both guys feel good, who would I rather throw out there in a big postseason game? I'm throwing Michael King out there. There's no doubt. I'm not even thinking about it. So 25 mil a year, the money that's freed up from the Hosmer contract, obviously Arraez, Suarez, Cease, like these guys potentially not coming back. There's money here that you can go spend. I know like the Pivetta contract, right? There's more money there this year than there was last year. But there is that money for 3 years, 75. There's money to bring back Michael King. And maybe the Padres could get creative a little bit and, give him more money in the last couple years of this deal. If it's a 3-year deal, Preller does like to do that. We saw it with the Nick Pivetta deal. You can work with that with Michael King. Now, I don't see Michael King signing for 3 years, 75. Because what I would see there in that situation is there's going to be a bidding war because there are teams that believe in Michael King and his ability. It's not just the Padres. I guarantee you it's not just the Padres. So I just don't see how the final number is going to be 3 years, 75 mil. I think it's going to be bigger than that. Even after this injury, the question marks coming off of this season. Robert Suarez, 4 years, $80 million. 4 years to me seems a little bit too much, and $20 million a year. Sure, he's one of the best closers in baseball. But are you going to get the same Robert Suarez for the next 4 years? That's a question you got to ask. And with assuming AJ Preller stays, he's got a track record of having a strong bullpen and having a strong closer, regardless of who is on the roster. The bullpen is a strength of AJ. So I have confidence that even if Robert Suarez goes, he's going to have a strong closer. I don't know what the Mason Miller situation is going to look like. Is he going to be starting? Is he going to be, that high leverage guy, or is he going to end up being the closer? I'd prefer Mason Miller to be the high leverage guy and not be the closer. I want him pitching in the biggest situations, not just, pigeonholed for that ninth inning like Robert Suarez was for every outing it seemed like this year for the most part, except in the postseason. When he came in really early in that game. Suarez is talented, but for $20 million a year for 4 years, it would be one thing if it's a couple years. For 4 years, I'm just going to trust AJ Preller's abilities to go build a strong bullpen, even without Robert Suarez. Ryan O'Hearn, 2 years, $24 million. That's reasonable. For someone, I think they probably should have given him more at-bats this season. That's someone that can be a really strong middle of the order bat for you. Lefty, he's got some pop. He can hit line drives and gaps. He can play multiple spots. He can play the outfield. He can play first base. DH, obviously. $12 million a year, I don't think that's too bad. Now, maybe AJ makes a trade somewhere and you can get a Ryan O'Hearn type bat maybe somewhere from another team and it's cheaper. But 2 years, 24, I feel like that's pretty reasonable. So at that price, I'd say yes. This year, obviously, I don't think that we saw fully what Ryan O'Hearn can give the Padres. I think they could have given him a little bit more of an opportunity, though. The guy, he still finished the year with 17 homers, OPS over 800, 25% above league average with the OPS plus. His numbers with Baltimore were better, significantly better than they were with the Padres. But he had 94 games with the Orioles. He had 50 with the Padres. Way more plate appearances with the Orioles. Just a much bigger sample size. So I would just like to see him get that consistent playing time with the Padres. And he's a better pop option to put in there every day over someone like the next guy, Luis Arraez. 2 years, 30 mil. I'm not doing that. And I don't think that the Padres want to do that either. I think if you're the Padres, you want to keep Luis Arraez. Like, in terms of a clubhouse guy, his bat to ball skills, like, I know that there are fans out there that are not the biggest Luis Arraez fan. But there's a spot for him on the team if they're not, so fixed, because Mike Schultz not managing, so maybe it would change. If they're not so fixed on playing him every day at the top of the order and playing him at first base all the time, if they're not going to be so fixed with that, there's a spot for Luis on this team. And if it's not for 15 million a year. But we got to remember what he made in arbitration this past year was something that I think a lot of fans were like, yeah, don't want to pay him that in free agency, but it's arbitration, so we got to do it. I think it was around 14 mil that they paid him in arbitration this past year. That's around the same on a 2-year contract in this Jim Bowden contract prediction here. I just don't want to do that for a bat to ball hitter. I'd rather spend that 15 mil a year. That's pretty much the Ryan O'Hearn. That's 12 mil a year, I'd rather spend that on someone like Ryan O'Hearn and bring him back so you have that power, much more of a power threat than Luis Arraez. I'd rather do that than bring Luis Arraez back on that money. If it wants to be 4 years for 30 mil, obviously Luis Arraez, his agent, I think it's the same agent as Manny, like, they're going to want more. And maybe the Rockies will pay Luis Arraez what he wants and give him 15 mil a year because they have money to spend. Maybe the Pirates will. I don't know who would do it. But if you're the Padres, you need more power, and someone can replace Luis Arraez defensively at first base. It would stink to lose him, as someone like in the clubhouse. He seems like a great human being, vibes, back to ball. Like, I did like at times watching Luis Arraez hit for the Padres, but there were times where it was very frustrating, where it's like, all right, stop looking at the pitches right down the middle and be aggressive. And it's not the hitter that he is with the power, but to have more of that ability is something that I want every day at first base this next season for the Padres. And it just wasn't there with Luis Arraez. So of these 5 guys, C 6 years, 187, King 3 years, 75, Suarez 4 years, 80 mil, O'Hearn 2 years, 24 mil, Arraez 2 years, 30 mil. Of these 5 guys, I'm not picking 3. I'm picking 2. I'm picking Michael King at 3 years, 75, and then Ryan O'Hearn 2 years, 24 to bring those guys back. And then starting rotation-wise, bringing Michael King back will make me more confident in this rotation. They got Joe Musgrove coming back next year. Let's remember that. I think you got to factor that in. And then Ryan O'Hearn, like, that's a guy that I think if you give him the at-bats, he can really help this team in the power department, which is where they need help, and it's a lefty bat. So I'd bring back those 2 guys. As for these other guys, Cease, you can replace him. I know maybe you can't replace him 1-for-1 in terms of the innings, and he does stay healthy. So I do give Dylan Cease credit there, and he does have potential, and there's some great starts. But you can replace him with multiple parts. You can. And you're not giving him $187 million for 6 years. I'm just not doing that. Robert Suarez, I trust AJ Preller's ability to build a bullpen. If Tanner Scott's not in it, guess what? He still built the bullpen. You know, years and years and years that he's built a bullpen, a strong bullpen with guys that have left. Whether that's Fernando Rodney, Kirby Yates, Brad Hand, like you want to go down the line. He continues to churn out these great closers. And obviously having Mason Miller through like 2028, 2029, whenever that is, maybe that improves the rotation. Maybe that keeps the bullpen strong. You got Jason Adam next year too. Let's remember that. I thought he was a free agent, but he actually is not. So, and I don't know if he'll be ready for the start of the year, but I would think he'd be ready at some point. And he's one of the best relievers in baseball. So you got Morahone still, you got Estrada. There's some talent there. Bradley Rodriguez, there's some talent there. And then there's talent that Preller will acquire eventually. We know he will because it's AJ. So some of these guys, I'm like, yep, you can replace them for that price. I'm not doing that price. And then a couple of these guys, I'm like, yeah, let's do that. Because I think they can help the Padres win baseball games. I think it's a reasonable price. And it's stuff that they need. Like Michael King, the dominance that he can give you when he's healthy in the postseason, need that. Ryan O'Hearn, the power potential, the flexibility, positionally, like he can do that. So those are the two for me. I think a lot of Padres fans would agree. If you disagree, you can let me know. If you agree, you can let me know. But yeah, that was interesting that Jim Bowden put that out today during the World Series, but he put out his contract predictions. And some of these contract predictions, I don't think that that's going to be totally accurate, but we'll see.